this person swung his foot straight into my nose, broke it immediately just because he fucking like kicked me straight in the nose. And I blacked out and I was like, what is going on? And there's like blood coming out of my nose. But I stayed for the whole show because I was like, like I'm 16. Right. Fuck it.
Tacoma Bridge, Washington, opened only a few months ago, was built at a cost of over $6 million. But misfortune overtakes the great structure. These are some of the most amazing pictures ever recorded by a newsreel.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of Scoped Exposure Podcast. I'm very delighted and excited to be welcomed and joined by Brenna of Denial of Life. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, shout out to Jessa, who's definitely going to be listening to this episode of the podcast. DOL kind of got put onto my radar through Jessa, and fast forward with a couple of rescheduling things, but you guys just kind of wrapped up doing a little Western Canada leg, which I always love to see because I think a big why behind Scoped Exposure is trying to give more attention to the west side of the country versus just what Toronto and the eastern side is up to. So to see Denial of Life do an entire, tour throughout Canada and kind of see what we have to offer and be able to play with some of the locals was very exciting. And obviously, I'm a big riff fan, so the minute you guys were playing, I was like, this is my shit. And, we wanted to, and we also talked about this as we were setting it up, because we had to do a few rescheduling things. And I think we were originally going to do this interview before all the van troubles that you were having.
Yeah, I think we were talking about doing it before we actually went on the Canada tour in general. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember talking about that like right when we got into LA or something like that.
Yeah, and whether it's like I need to reschedule because I have something on my end, or like someone forgets, like whatever the reason is, it's always very serendipitous of like something, a meme blowing up on the internet, or like something like a van issue, but like, thankfully, that will be a portion that we get to eventually on the podcast, but like it's always like interesting that it, instead of, and I've been on the other side of it too, where I've had someone on and then a month later they're quitting the band. And if we had rescheduled it enough times, like maybe we would never done the interview at all. So stoked to have you on. Before we get into the music chats, it's tradition here to check some bevs before we get off to the races. So tell me what you're going to be sipping on for the show.
Well, first I will be sipping on a raspberry pure leaf sweet tea.
Very nice.
Delicious. And then my second bev is going to be a little bit more caffeinated. It's one of the Starbucks Frappuccinos.
Nice.
A classic.
Yeah.
I like to drink one of those before I go to work or do anything important, because it really energizes me like no other. So, yeah.
Do you find that because I'm assuming you pick that up at like a local, gas station or convenience store of some kind. Yeah. I always I feel when I see those, I feel it's a daunting choice to do that versus if I was just getting a Starbucks thing. So I was like, are they the exact same? Is the ones that you would buy at 7-Eleven or any convenience store just like caffeinated out the wazoo? I don't know if you've A/B tested them per se.
Yeah, I mean, well, like out here in Washington, we have a Starbucks on literally like every corner and every single part of town, So these definitely, I gotta say, don't taste like as good. I'm a very big fan of like sweet, sugary drinks. I'm not really a plain coffee type of gal by any means. So, but yeah, these like, I don't think they're as good as just like getting an iced coffee at Starbucks, but honestly, it's way more convenient. So, totally. Yeah.
I was just thinking, one of my very first jobs when I was growing up, I worked at a Wendy's, and we have. Is there Tim Hortons down in Washington?
No, unfortunately not.
But
wish
you're aware of Timmy's. So this was back in the day, and I'm sure that this is pretty common, like where it's like the KFC Taco Bell or the Wendy's Tim Hortons like combo store. I feel like in your neck of the woods there would just be a Starbucks connected to another Starbucks. Yeah, that would just be normal. It's like that line's too long. Honestly. Then I'll just go to that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but those are good choices. What's your like normal if we were a bigger podcast and you're like, I want to bring a Primo Bev to this show. What's the Brenna Starbucks order? Put it on the record if in case anyone wants to bring one to the show, to the next DOL set.
It's kind of embarrassing because I feel like like those people who order at Starbucks and they have like those super long orders and you're just like, okay, like,
yeah, they pull out their medieval scroll and go like this.
Literally. Yeah. Okay. But I am one of those.
There's no shame.
Well, the thing on the menu already has a long name. So it's just like when I add something to it, just one thing, it's like, damn, like you're talking. Okay, so I'll just tell you what it is.
Yeah. Hit me with the title.
Okay, so it's an iced brown sugar shaken espresso with oat milk, and then add a couple of pumps of cinnamon dolce syrup in it. Light ice, also.
That was a lot of words.
I know, it's a mouthful.
That's like literally like boss level Wordle. Like it would just be like, how the hell do I even translate this?
I know.
But to your credit, it doesn't help that the original title is already so long.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't help at all. Like when I'm
not adding much.
People are like, "Oh, I'm gonna run over to Starbucks and get something to drink. Do you want anything?" I'm just like, I'll just have a nice vanilla latte. Just tell them that because I don't care.
Yeah. When I was on my last work trip, my boss was like, we were in between podcasts and he was like, I'm going to get a coffee. Do you want something? And I feel like my special drink is an iced dirty chai with oat milk.
Ooh,
I feel like, yeah, like that's the shit. It snowed here today in Calgary, which is just the way it is at times. It'll just randomly snow and then it'll be plus 20.
It was snowing here like 5 minutes ago, just literally for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So
it still is, but yeah. Super random though.
Yeah. But why was I saying that? Oh, I was saying that because in the summertime, that's all I like to drink. I'll have like my morning coffee and then I'll do an iced dirty chai if I'm like going out and getting something midday. And when I said that, he just looked at me like, are you like Mr. Fancy Pants over here with your crazy drink? Because he'll just drink like a cold brew or like, something with that. So I feel like after 3 or 5 words for your coffee order, it gets like more fancy or you're being bougie, but yours is like almost like the front page of a book.
It's like 10 fucking words. It's so embarrassing. And like Logan, for instance, the guitarist in DOL, Logan, he'll get like, he's always like, oh yeah, let me just get an Americano. Like, super simple. And then I'm like, I have to like, it's just always embarrassing every single time.
Yeah. But I will say a lot of those longer name Starbucks drinks are like really maximize the taste and the sweetness versus
it's
if you're
really
just getting something.
Good, honestly.
Yeah. Totally.
Highly recommend it to anybody. But it's
and I love the serendipity that, maybe we talk about it enough on the podcast that someone's rolling up at your next show with that in hand and be like, did I get the order right? And
that would be great.
Then you guys are best friends. Bevs for me. So this past weekend, I was just in Jasper for my wife's birthday. We were just kind of doing that. And something that's crazy as a Bev aficionado, I always like being in a random town. I'll always just like look for Bevs. And I have very low expectations because I'm like, they're going to have like, they might have bubbly or they might have like, 3 flavors of liqueur or something. But for some reason, Jasper, which like for those that aren't familiar with Western Canada, it's like 5 hours kind of northwest from Calgary. So it's kind of like you're deep in the mountains.
Okay.
So, like it's a mountain town. But I got this Karma Farming Bevco, which is a peach soda. I've never seen this before, and I'm going to be trying this with you for the first time on the show. So I'm quite excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds fire.
There was also, I didn't get this in Jasper, but I feel like the Bev highlight of that trip was I got a lightly sparkling mineral water that was cherry flavored here in town. And that was like, I'm really glad I got the 4-pack and not an individual, because it was like the top of the trip for sure.
Damn. So it was lightly sparkled though.
Yeah, and it was mineral water. So like in my mind, I'm imagining like a Topo Chico, but like in a can like this and cherry flavors. So I'll have to check it on an upcoming episode, because it was that good, honestly.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Brenna, cheers to you. Stoked to do this podcast, and thanks for coming on the show.
Cheers, Spencer. And cheers to you, Jordan, as well.
Jordan, that was your first ever cheers, man. How do you feel about that?
I'm so happy.
So happy. Anytime I ask Jordan to respond, even though he's just a black square on my screen, I just imagine him trying to he's got a million buttons as far as our setup is concerned. He's trying to find the unmute one. So,
oh yeah.
Brenna, any new guests that I have here on the show, I always like to get a bit of context as far as how they got into this sphere of DIY music, hardcore, heavy music, however you want to spin it. So take me way back in time and tell me the first time that you were finding out about this subculture, finding out about this style of music, and kind of what put you on the path initially.
Okay. Well, I was probably around 12 years old, and my two best friends, who are still my best friends to this day, one of them, her name is Sav. She was this MySpace scene queen. She was super popular on MySpace and had a bunch of MySpace friends, and she always had the coolest songs on her profile and all of this stuff. And I just thought she was so fucking cool, and because she was. But anyway, she was going to shows at this place called the Viaduct, which is now Real Art in Tacoma.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah. So it was called the Viaduct back then though, and we basically she was going to these shows and then coming back and showing me the music that she was listening to. So there was Weekend Nachos and God damn it, how can I not remember this? I'm just trying to remember the exact band, but I'm not going to remember right now. But anyway, so she would just come back and show me and Tiana, the other best friend, all of these bands, and I really took a liking to it. And everything that was just really aggressive and really socking me in the face, wise, with riffs and whatnot. And I really thought that, I just thought moshing was so cool, and I thought that just the potentiality of getting hurt in this mosh pit was really cool.
Come here.
And yeah, so basically I just started going to shows when I was 13, and really just I would always throw myself into the mosh pit immediately, be right up front for the whole show, go to every show that I possibly could. There was a lot of DIY venues in Tacoma at the time, so they made it really easy to go to shows every single week in the middle of the week, so yeah, there was a ton of local bands that I got really into. I never really dove into hardcore until actually seeking out hardcore bands until I was about 18, because I was really focused on punk music specifically and wanting to do some kind of weird, I wanted some gun club type of sound, and I wanted this Like, the band Lysol from Seattle by chance?
No, I'm more familiar with the cleaning product than the actual band, but
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. They're this punk band from Seattle, and they they were one of the first ones that I saw at a DIY venue in Seattle called Nut Hole that I would hang out at all the time. And I was just super inspired by their sound. It was just very like pure punk, So I was really kind of chasing that for a while in the bands that I was in at the time, and seeking out those types of bands. And then when I turned 18, 19, I started going to hardcore shows every once in a while. And then I started I started listening to Turnstile, honestly. And I was like, oh shit, like this rips. And then I started getting deeper and deeper into it. And then once I got into DOL, it was like Nick, my drummer, is like this big brained dude who just has this like insane, like he has like a file on every single hardcore band in existence in his head, So he's been showing me everything, every single band that I need to know, and like every band that I've ended up loving, for the past like 3 or 4 years. So yeah. So
a lot to unpack there. I think the first being, what attracted you more to that like pure punk kind of side that you were saying versus like the more harder stuff? Because I think the thing with hardcore that's really unique is that, to me, it doesn't matter where you came from. Like you could come all the way from like, I was listening to folk music and then I heard like, this is going to be a weird analogy, but bear with me. I could listen to folk music, and then listen to City in Color, and then find out Dallas Green was in Alexis on Fire, and then that starts the rabbit hole of getting into some of the harder stuff. But like, like myself, I was listening to a lot of like pop punk and like very cheesy metalcore before I was understanding what hardcore actually is. But I guess like I'm just curious on like, you were seeing both, but at the time you were more attracted to pure punk, and why that was.
Well, I'd probably say it was because of my friends, those were the bands that my friends were in. That was like, I was hanging out at this venue all the time. That was a punk venue. But also like, I just really liked the sound of rebellion, I guess, like, even though that sounds really corny, I was really, anti-authority, don't tell me what the fuck to do, growing up. So anything that like gave me that really, I latched onto. And also I think accessibility, because when I would go to hardcore shows, I mean, I'm not going to lie, like it was like kind of a male dominated space and a super like masculine vibe that I was intimidated by, and I didn't really feel like I could infiltrate necessarily.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like the punk scene was way more welcoming to that, and they had way more female singers, and I don't think I had even known a hardcore band with yes, I did, but I only knew like one hardcore band with a female singer, so yeah.
Yeah, it's, I won't name the band specifically, but I saw a really funny story where it was more in that like oi kind of punk kind of space, where it's like this band was playing and someone had reshared it, and it was like a bunch of just like dudes who were just like shaved heads. They would wear similar clothes, and then the next story was a screenshot of a DM in response to that story saying like, all y'all look the same except for one guy wearing a hat.
Yeah.
And like, as funny as that is, it's like so apparent that like people feel not only like welcomed into the scene, but also inspired when they can like see someone on stage that they identify with. And you know, if we go back 10 years, like a lot of it was like just white dudes. And, you know, I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
hardcore in 2022 is in such a great space of like, you know, there's not only like girls who are fronting bands, but also like playing guitar and playing drums and playing bass. And then you're seeing just like a huge mix of races and cultural backgrounds. That's just like, it's just normal now. And I think it's awesome that it's normal. And I think a lot of people look to the past and just like put that on a pedestal, while I just see how great things are right now. Not only on like a listenership, but just like a community aspect as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I feel like right now it's a lot more inclusive and a lot more of I don't want to say like a safe space, but it is a safe space, and a lot more of a just pleasant experience for everyone involved, you know? So
yeah. And I think it's like recognizing, you know, there's still tons that everyone in the scene can do. And, you know, I have multiple conversations with friends. Like, I think it falls on all of us, but I think the people that have those bigger influential pulls, like the people that book fests, as far as like being intentional about booking the bands, not to like play that like, oh, here's the one band that has the female person in it, but like I think just being aware of that and conscious that that needs to happen to some degree, or whatever degree that person wants to make. Now I'm trying a new tactic. Jordan's seen all the tactics with my crazy hyperactive dogs, but now I just have treats in my pocket. Now I'm gonna just silently just, you know, do them. Okay, so we'll pick it up here. So Brenna, let's talk about Denial of Life. I think DOL has been a band that I've seen really trying to be as active as possible. And I think in this day and age in hardcore, I think there's a lot of bands that can, like, it's not that touring isn't needed, but it's not as essential as it was kind of pre-pandemic times. So when I see bands that are touring as much as you guys, or bands like Zulu or Scowl or really anything, it just catches my attention that much more. So let's start or just origin story of the band and how that came to be, and then we'll kind of move into some of those things.
Okay. Well, I have known all three of the boys since I've known Nikki since I was 15. I've known Spencer since I was 16, and I've known Logan since I was 18.
Who's Spencer? Is that Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think he was maybe the one dude that I did not talk to at that show. And now I feel bad because we are the same but different.
Yeah. I think I was talking to you and I said your name to like get your attention or something. I don't know. Oh, it was when I was talking to you when we were on stage, and I was like, oh, if you need anything, Spencer, like if you need a, you know, he looked at me and he was like, what? I super confused. So I thought that was funny.
Can I tell one quick Spencer story, and then I'll let you continue that? When I started dating my now wife, she has a cousin named Spencer, and then I've always been like the first Spencer for a lot of people, and then it was like I'm coming into this family where I'm like I you know, they would say it across the room and I'd be like, what? I'm like, oh, no one wants to talk to me. Like, I'm just like the in-law. Anyways, start of DOL.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, basically known all the boys since I was a teenager. They've all been active in the music scene in Tacoma specifically for a long time, especially Nick. And anyway, so we all knew each other. I was living up in Seattle, and so was Logan at the time. And basically I was working at Sizzle Pie, and he was also kind of working there. I think he worked there for like a week. And he approached me about starting a band because he told me he had liked my vocals in the last band that I was in.
Which was... Or do you want to plug the old band? Or you're like, let's not do that.
I mean, I am not the biggest fan of the album, but I don't mind telling the name of the band. It was a band named Jinx.
Okay. I've
Yeah,
listened to Jinx
and-
before.
Really?
Yeah.
Like my Jinx?
Yeah. I assume there might be multiple Jinxes, but
It's spelled like JNX.
oh yes, yeah, I have, and here's why.
What?
You see this Totodile here? The minute that I found out there was a band named Jinx, I was like, my Pokemon brain's like, oh, like the Pokemon, like that's crazy. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what caught my attention. And yeah.
No, it wasn't, but I mean, that's crazy because I feel like that's like the most, person furthest away that I would ever expect to listen to that band. Like I never would have expected that. But yeah, so I was in that band for a little while. I think that was like 6 months or something. And then we ended, and Logan basically told me he liked my vocals and asked me if I liked Sacrilege, which I had never listened to at that point. And I was like, I don't know, like, let me take a listen to it. And I listened and I fucking loved it. And I realized like that is the type of music that I want to be making. So he asked me to front his Sacrilege worship band, basically,
Right.
And so, yeah. And then we started out with this one drummer, but that ended up not really working out. And so Logan suggested Nick. And Nick and I did not have a very good history at that point. I was like, hard fuck no. Definitely not going to be in a band with Nick. I hadn't seen him. So this is also the context. I hadn't seen him in about probably like 6 years at that point.
Okay.
So, a lot can change in that period of time. But I really did not like the person he was 6 years before that.
Right.
So, but Logan was like, you know what, dude, like give him one chance. Like, let's do one practice with him. Let's see how it goes. And it went really fucking well. I mean, Nick is an incredible musician, and I honestly had a great time with him. And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's take him. And then Russo came into the picture not like shortly after that. I think I don't remember who suggested him. It might have been Nikki, but yeah. And everybody just fit in like a glove, So,
I don't think I've ever heard of someone who was like originally like hard no, I don't want this person to be in a band, but not seeing it through, but just being able to be open to allow like, let's do a jam, let's see how it happens. And then it's like, yeah, like that makes it work. Was that just like how do you, like, have you always kind of been in that position where you're like, maybe having a history with someone, and like, have you had other opportunities to be able to like, let's give it a try, let's see if this person has grown, and like cooler heads prevail or anything? Or was that kind of the first time where you're like, in the sake of hardcore, I'm going to be open to that?
Yeah, I would say that's yeah, I'd say that's the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I am very curious, just on the sake of like, there's definitely been people that I've like been in bands with that like we just butted heads the whole time, and I've always thought like, and for like, and not even butted heads musically, but just like maybe personality wise, and I've always thought about like, could I ever be in a band with this person again, or like, could I ever be in a project with a person that I've like never been in, but like, maybe there's some kind of like weird kind of tension between me and this person. And I like the idea or just the challenging thought of just like, hey, maybe if you had something with someone, maybe jamming with them on like a project could actually work, and just being open to that. But I think, it's definitely a lot of pressure, because being in a band in a serious project is like your family, because you're like working through everyone's schedules and doing all these different things. It's a bit easier when it's like, hey, we might play like a couple local shows a year, but that might be it. So at the time, did you think DOL was just going to be that? Like, we're just going to be like doing some local things, or was the plan out the get-go like we're gonna go and hit the road as much as we can?
That, yeah, definitely. It was Logan and I kind of decided, like, when we started the band, we were like, we're taking this as far as we can go, you know. We were determined because we really liked the music that we made, and we really liked playing with each other, and we really, you know, enjoyed writing together as well. And especially now, like, I feel more motivated than ever because I gotta say, like, when we wrote the demo, right, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, like, this is DOL, I guess, you know. But it didn't really feel like that was like the right sound. Like, it wasn't exactly what we wanted, you know. And but then we wrote Scheming. That song like completely changed everything. That was when like Nick even was like, this is my band too. Like, because at first he was like, I'm just the drummer, I just work here, like, don't ask me to do anything, I'm not writing any fucking riffs, I'm like not taking any responsibility. And now like he's doing all of that, you know, and even further, you know. And so we're a lot more motivated now than we were before, and we were already, you know, ready to take it as far as we possibly could. So
yeah, so it sounded like one release, or like maybe it was even one specific song itself that was like, oh, I understand it now. Because I think a lot of the time it's like, this is very similar to my own projects. It's like, when you have certain expectations that are like, hey, we're going to do stuff, but like, we don't really know what we're going to do sound wise. And then over time, it's like, oh, now I actually know the shoes that I'm stepping into. And now I know how to walk, and how to, you know, the pace that I want to set with it. And I feel like do you think that without putting out that first initial release, like, you guys wouldn't have been able to find that per se?
Yeah, just because it kind of felt like a warm-up or like a practice, you know. It felt like we needed to crank out a few songs that maybe we felt a little unsure about or whatever, you know. And it also, I think it really helped me as a writer because I love writing songs, I love doing that, but like, I didn't really know much about vocal patterns. I didn't really know a lot about melodies. I'm not a super experienced vocalist, you know. Before this, I was only in the one band that I fronted, you know. So it was a huge learning experience that I think we needed, for sure.
Yeah. And I think like with anything creative, like putting something out and like having it literally on the chopping block for people at times is like the way to really learn, like, this works, this doesn't. The next time I approach this, I'm going to do this better. And that could be anything from making music to drawing different styles of art. And I find like sometimes I get a little bit too obsessed in like the process of things, where like, you know, I'll just kind of like jump into something like with this podcast, and then Jordan's like, well, maybe we like do a test run or something like that. And I'm like, no, let's just put it out, and I want to be told it sucks, and then I can like kind of grow from there. Because I like the idea of just like showing that it doesn't need to be any kind of creative endeavor doesn't need to be fully planned out. Totally. And I feel like band stuff is kind of the same. Like it's almost more embraced to just like stick a microphone in the middle of the room and play the songs like 75% correct and then put it out, and then it's like a super raw demo, versus trying to like do that. And I feel like there's never one way to go about it, and that's, you know, there's a reason that we have a lot of diversity on production when it comes to hardcore. You know, you get the bands that like do stuff like that, and then you have the people that are like very meticulous of that. But this is a very long-winded way of me just saying, like, putting something out that you made almost teaches you more than you just holding it on and like framing it and like doing all these things.
Absolutely.
And to your point, even if, and it's not like every band needs to have like 10,000 releases because it's like, oh, we've always been learning. But I'm sure that, even Jinx was like a starting block of like doing a couple things and then putting it out and then that band breaking up. And I find it's always like a couple releases. And then if the band doesn't work, you're still taking that experience into the next project.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really thankful for that whole experience with Jinx. Because I had never been, like I said, I'd never been a lead vocalist before that.
Right.
I'd done some backup vocal stuff and I sang for like one song with this horrible band that I was in, before that. And so I didn't know how to perform. I didn't know my voice at all, and so I am thankful for that practice.
Right. Jordan, I realized Jordan texted me because he needed to adjust the camera. So Jordan, you can make your mark and adjust your camera now. I was like, who's texting me?
I sent that and then your dogs barked and I did it during that.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, we could just pick it up.
What time? Also.
It's 3:12 your time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we still got like half an hour-ish, if that. So let's fast track to some more current stuff. So, like you said, DOL, very intentional about like, we're going to take this as far as we can. I've seen y'all playing a ton of stuff, like Jag specifically, because that's like home base. But then there's like, hitting Western Canada, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other things on the calendar here. So with all of that happening, I'm going to use this as like a little bit of a segue into the van woes of the band and kind of how that happened. So let's start, like, just tell me like very bare bones of how, like, what initially happened, and then we'll go like step by step of like recovery and discovery and all those other things.
Okay. We were staying at our friend's house in South Central. The van was just parked on the street, we woke up one morning and I asked Logan if he was going to take the van out at all that day. And he was like, the van's gone. And we were all just like, oh, okay, cool. Don't know what to do. So we, we're calling every single tow yard in LA, calling the police tow yards and like, just like searching the neighborhoods, like combing every single alleyway, every street, looking at every single van that we saw for 3 days straight. Like seriously, we're all packed into our friend's car and just like driving all over. And yeah.
And did you have a break from shows, or were you like supposed to play like later on?
Yeah, actually it's really funny. So the morning we woke up and he told us the van was gone. We had a show that night in LA. It was our very last show of tour also. So we were on the very, very last day of tour. We were going to go home like the next day or the day after or something. And and we just got screwed. So luckily our friend who we were using his car to search for the van, he let us use that to load up our gear and stuff. But we were obviously like missing a bunch of stuff to play the show, which was really shitty. But we were backlined, so that's cool. But
yeah. So initially when you guys were searching, it wasn't clear if like it got towed or stolen. Is that right? Or was it very clear that?
Yeah, we had no idea because there was no broken glass anywhere, like where it was parked. Nothing that really indicated that, and so, and we were like parked the tiniest bit in a red zone. So we were like, it could have gotten towed. We don't know. And we've heard these horror stories of like people towing your car in LA and then like screwing you over and whatever. So we were just kind of assuming that that was the case. But later that night, we found out that definitely was not the case, because Logan and I, after we played that very last show, we were like, fuck it. We want to go out and do something fun, get our minds off of this. And we heard about this party going on, this like rave thing going on in downtown. And we were like, hell yeah, we're going to go party and have a good time and forget about all of our troubles, right?
Yeah.
So we go and we are having a really good time. We're like socializing with a bunch of people, like meeting a whole bunch of new friends. And we went with the homie Nate, who's in Rapid Response, that we were also on tour with. And we were outside smoking, and I heard him say, yo, is that the van? And we turn around and I read the license plate, and it was the van, like literally being parked in the alleyway across the street from the venue we were at.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's like straight out of a movie.
Dude, this whole experience has been so fucked. Like, I don't understand how lucky we are, first of all, and also like just the sequence of events. It blows my mind. So yeah, right. So we see the van, right? And I'm all wasted and pissed off and like reactive. So I just start running after it. Really, really naive decision on my part. The boys chase after me, and I'm like, I go up to the window and I screamed something at the dude, and he's this handsome, like hot dude driving the van. Yeah, I know, it's really weird. And he's like wearing one of Logan's vests also. And I thought, for some reason, I don't even know what I was thinking. Honestly, I really don't. But obviously he speeds off. Logan and I chased after the van as much as we could. And then we hopped in Nate's car and just started combing the streets of downtown with the van. And
I'm sure this is at like midnight or some obscure
This is at like 4 in the fucking morning, I think.
Right.
Like, yeah. So, and I'm pretty positive this is what upsets me, and I know it upsets my bandmates as well, or at least did at the time, is like, homie was parking it, like, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure he was just going to go to the party that we were at. So I could have just waited, and watched him, but I was honestly really scared that we were going to lose it, which, I mean, we ended up doing anyways, but like, I needed to do something, and
right.
That was it,
Yeah. So that is when they do a movie about DOL and this scene happens, it would be cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
So you find it gets away again. A couple more days go by, and then at some point you're like, we can't be just staying here. We got to go home. So, and you just correct the record. I'm just trying to make sure that we cover this and make sure that we hit the other things. You fly home. When is it, and how does it happen that you find it, even though you already are home at this point?
So we ended up flying home. So obviously we couldn't take our gear back with us.
Right.
So we left it at our friend's apartment. Shout out Nate Kahn.
And how many days how many days after the van initially being stolen, are you flying home?
I'd say about 4.
Okay.
Probably.
So you would have, like you said, driven back the next night, or maybe stay one extra day, but it's like almost an entire week of like, where the fuck is the van,
Exactly. Yeah. And I think being there was driving us a little crazy, so we needed to go home, and just kind of like gather ourselves, So we did that, and we were home for about a week and a half, and Logan took my car down to LA to pick up the gear. to bring him. And while he's in LA, he gets the call that the van was found. The cops pulled them over, apparently. And
okay.
Yeah. And the tow yard that it was at was, where they got pulled over was like 5 minutes away from where Logan was, which is insane. Again, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like he just so happens to be in LA.
This is not even a movie anymore. This is just a Netflix documentary series.
I know.
about DOL in the van. That is so crazy.
Yeah.
So and did you find out anything about this supposedly handsome dude that is out stealing people's vans?
I mean, not really. We found like a bunch of laxatives and shit in the van. So
laxatives?
So we're kind of, I mean, there's like kind of the inference that like maybe homie was like shooting dope or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, but like besides that, no. And he
like, why are you trying to shit in the van so bad? Like that's my He goes, I can't steal a bathroom, so I'm gonna use this.
Yeah. Luckily he didn't shit anywhere inside of the van, so that's cool. Yes.
That would be that's like a Black Mirror ending to the show. But
yeah.
That's crazy. And the reason I'm really glad that we could talk about this there's a happy ending. It still costs you guys a lot of money with all the searching and like having to do all that stuff, but it's the better ending versus like, oh, we never saw it again. Because like guaranteed there's like a handful of people that either know someone or have been affected by like a van being stolen or stuff in a van being stolen while out on tour, and that can really take a toll on a lot of bands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what's crazy, and I'm like ultra appreciative that huge hit for a band of your guys' size, like it didn't slow you guys down. And I think that's like the huge thing that I'm trying to hit on here as far as like a band to pay attention to, is that like you guys are like about doing it like at like no matter what's in front of you. And I think that's like ultra sick to see. So,
thank you.
Of course. And I think it's like, oh, it's Western Canada, we can just cancel it. But you're like, no, of course we're going to do this. So, I'm really happy. Is there any like for people in bands with bands that have, because I have theft paranoia out my asshole. Like if I'm going into the store for 5 minutes and I have a camera bag on me, it's like that's going on my backpack because I don't want to be the person that has to put up a thing. So with this whole experience, is there anything or any takeaways that you're like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna park it here, someone's gonna be in the van at all times? I'm curious I'm sure you've had discussions band wise about that. Now that it's back in your possession.
Definitely. We definitely have, I highly recommend having tracking devices hidden well in the van or on whatever it is that you are not trying to lose. But also, we've been doing the thing where it's usually just one person in the van at all times, like sleeping in there no matter where we are. Like even in Boise, like we stayed at this really nice house. It was like in the middle of the suburbs, like actually sick. And I slept in the van because it was like, we're fucking determined to never have that happen again, Right. And even though we have those like GPS things or whatever, it's like could still get stolen. They could find those GPS things and throw them away, like,
yeah.
Every precaution that you can possibly take, do for sure.
Yeah. I think the Apple AirTags, I think they're called.
Yeah.
I know that friend from the show, Bill Crook from the band Spirit Box, was like, spend the money and get some of those. Like put one on your wallet, put one on your like in your guitar case. Like he was in a situation where he was flying somewhere to play a show, and he could show the airport people like, my guitar is here, when they're like, we don't know where it is. It's like, look on my phone, it's got the tag, go find it. But yeah, like one of the very first times that I got to have a band stay at my house was it was crazy. This was years and years ago, but it was Gideon and 100th were doing a tour together, and they both stayed at my house, and like parents lived in very like, middle class, like very nice neighborhood, like barely any crime that's happening. And it was like adamant that the merch guy was like, no, I'm sleeping in the van tonight. And at the time I'm like, dude, like nothing's going to happen. But at the same time, you never know. And I understand, it's better to be like, I might not get the best sleep being in this van, but I know at least if someone is trying to be sussy, I can just like be there versus, stepping outside and our biggest asset of our band is gone. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know we're all willing to do anything to make sure that never fucking happens again. Cause that was horrible,
Yeah. I've heard like crazy things, especially like from other people, that there's like, and this may be hearsay. Like don't use this as facts, as like Spencer said on the podcast. Like half the shit I say on here, it's like take it with a grain of salt. But I heard that there's like some like very not underground, like there's like rings of criminals that like plan out like stealing vans, like a tour poster will go out and that tour poster is circulated. Well. Yeah, that shit is like so crazy. And the fact that like there are people that are like looking at like a tour poster of a band that's not fucking Metallica or like someone of that level, and they're doing it for a group of whoever people who are scrounging up all their pocket change to be able to purchase a vehicle that they can go out and go on tour, and they're like, these are our targets, and that shit is so fucked. Yes.
Yeah, I will never understand that, because it's literally like, we're not rich by any means. We can't just fucking replace it like it's nothing, I mean, yeah, so it's really upsetting that people would want to do that, especially to like, small bands,
Mm-hmm. I think just being like, I think that there's a notion if you play in a punk or hardcore band that it's just kind of like a fuck it kind of attitude. I think with anything, you just need to just be so on it when it comes to like, have we dotted every I and crossed every T as far as like, what's the smartest thing here? And that could be anything from like, hey, maybe someone should sleep in the van, or hey, maybe we don't leave backpacks just out in the open when we're not in the vehicle, or anything like that. I think just being like, oh, this sucks, and then being like, well, what are the things that I could have actually done to help prevent this? So
absolutely.
So obviously DOL is off to a really busy start to this year. When is the next release kind of in the works, and what do you guys have coming up that you can talk about? Because most times bands are like, we can't talk about this until the fall or next year or whatever it is. So whatever you can share as far as what you guys are working on and what you're focusing on, let the people know.
Okay. Well, we've been working on a full length for the past 8 months, probably. Mm-hmm. Just constantly writing and recording. Right before we went on our West Coast tour, we wrapped it all up. And so yeah, it's being mastered right now. So it should be coming out within the next month or two, possibly. But I'm hoping the next month. I'm hoping as soon as possible. Because I really can't wait to share that with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we've got that coming, and then also we're planning a full US tour right now. So that's really, really exciting. I cannot wait for that at all. Mm-hmm. We're going to be playing my hometown in Ohio, which is really exciting. I'm like setting that up with some homies out there. So yeah.
That's awesome. Where did you originally grow up in Ohio?
I'm from Akron, Ohio.
Okay. I have no idea where that is.
Oh, that's totally fine. It's like 30 minutes south of Cleveland, 30 to 45 minutes. I only lived there until I was about 5, but I returned back every single year, maybe twice a year sometimes. I just recently spent like 3.5 months out there with my family. So yeah, very special place for me. And I actually just recently, when I was there for 3.5 months, just recently went to a hardcore show there and met people in the scene and actually talked to them about music and everything. And it was really cool. Mm-hmm.
Being able to either go back to your original scene if you moved, or like being able just to experience any other hardcore scene and kind of be that like that newbie in the room, even though you have your own like backstory and years of experience, I think is like so humbling. Like
it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I go to the show here, everybody knows who I am. You know, I'm like, they know who DOL is, you know, it's like,
right.
It's not new whatsoever. And then when I'm out there, I like went to this house show. It was actually a 200 Stab Wounds show. And they played this garage of someone's house. And there was like maybe 20, 30 people there, like not many people at all. And everyone seemed to have like known each other forever. And it was like this very intimate setting that I was kind of infiltrating is what it felt like. But I was very much so welcomed with open arms. I made a bunch of friends. And actually the person who's helping me set up the shows, I met at that show. Right. So yeah,
that's, I love that. Just like being able to, if you have time, and because it could be for a number of reasons. You could be on a work trip, you could be seeing old family, you could just, you know, have a layover. But like, if you know that something's happening, like being able to jump on those opportunities and being able to experience that. The last time I was in California, like our work stuff wrapped up, and I was like, oh, there's this Rotting Out show that's happening in San Fernando that's like 45 minutes away. It's going to be an expensive Uber, but fuck it, I have to go. And then I like ran into like 3 people that I've like had here on the podcast but haven't met in person yet, and just like very randomly, and just like it's just so cool just to like indulge in that and chase that. So that's very cool.
Absolutely.
Are you the type of person that's like, I'm going to bring my parents to the show and have them see me do my thing? Or you're like, you stay at home, I don't want you seeing any of this?
Well,
and that could be for any of your family who's out there.
Yeah, totally. I'm very much welcoming to my entire family coming to my shows. My parents live in Tacoma. Right. So growing up, my dad was the lead singer of bands my entire life. So he kind of jumps at the opportunity to come and see me perform whenever he can. He actually, one of our first shows he came to, and it was in the basement of this like college house. People were like smoking cigarettes inside and, you know, like drinking beers or whatever. And we were just about to go on. And he walks in through the door and I saw him and I said, oh shit, my dad's here. And everyone, like literally, it's so funny. Everyone was like, what? Like, like they were getting in trouble or something.
Oh shit, my dad's here. Man, that's hilarious.
And he parted the seas of the pit and like literally walked right up to the mic, and he pulled, you know, he's like very much so a showman, you know. He went up and he was like, are you ready to rock? I think he was like, denial of fucking life.
Wow. Brenna's got the coolest dad of everyone listening on this podcast.
I like to think so, yeah.
my dad's the kind of person that I have to like, hey, if you want to, there's no pressure. And then I think the last time my dad saw me play live was like maybe 4 years ago. So not even like in the band that arguably is the best of what I, you know, been in. And
totally.
he's like I'm gonna stand in the back with my beer at this bar and then just like watch my son do that, and then afterwards not really know how to compliment or say if it was good or bad, but totally. Your dad sounds about it. He grabbed that mic and he's like, "This is my show."
Literally, if he could take over the show and be the lead singer instead, he would. I mean, he already takes the show away from me anyways because he's a star. He can't help it.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
when I'm in Ohio, when we play our Ohio show, I'm really hoping that my entire family comes. Honestly, I'm really looking forward specifically to my nephew coming, though, because he's 11 years old and he's very into punk music, and he... I'm the cool aunt because I'm the lead singer of this hardcore band, and he's helped me to write lyrics before, which is actually pretty incredible. He helped me to write a few lines of a song on our full length, actually.
Wow. That's
They're
awesome.
fucking sick. Yeah, and I'm really proud of him. He is honestly just such a good artist to begin with, and he's only now he's 12, actually. Sorry. But yeah, he's only 12 years old and he's so good at so many things. I'm just so excited. And I want him to be up on stage with me or something, I want him to feel
you need that you need that moment of you guys playing a big fest and it's, filmed by someone like me or Sonny or whoever, and then he comes on stage and you pass the mic to him, and just all these kids, all these people going up. So hopefully we can make that happen one day.
So.
Brenna, let's start to wrap up the show. The last question I asked before I let any guest go was a favorite mosh related story that they would like to share, and that's anything that's first to your mind. Could be funny, wholesome, scary, bloody, gory, however you want to spin it is how we start to wrap up.
Okay. Damn. Well,
I'm sure there's a million rushing to your head right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn between 3 right now, actually. Okay, I'll just tell this one. So there's this house show in Tacoma. It was this place called the Cush House, and they had this basement. They rarely threw shows because the basement ceiling was literally 6 foot tall. Everybody's heads were scraping up against
exactly how tall I am. So it would just be me scraping the top of my head.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But somehow, for some reason, people were crowd surfing and basically just laying super flat and just being scraped across the ceiling. So that was crazy. And I got lifted up, and I was up there for 30 seconds or something. And then I was being put down, and somebody was being lifted up at the same time as I was being put down. And this person swung his foot straight into my nose, broke it immediately just because he fucking kicked me straight in the nose. And I blacked out, and I was like, what is going on? And there's blood coming out of my nose. But I stayed for the whole show because I was I'm 16. Right. Fuck it. Whatever. And then I had a super swollen nose and black eyes the next day. So, yeah.
I will say, I don't think any guest has demonstrated a kick like you just did on the podcast. And I have to give you a round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't. So it sounds like people either running this show or people who would attend these shows were very much encouraging the stage diving, or not even the stage diving, just picking people up and just scraping them on the cement ceiling.
Yeah,
which I would be like, don't pick me up. I'm not signing up for this. Do you we have time for one more? I was just gonna say, you're I'm thinking of 3 mosh stories. I was like, oh, you can share one for each bev that you have. But
oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, actually, this one is not necessarily about me. This is about Nick. Okay. I just will never forget the story that he told me. If that's okay, do I have to share a personal one?
It doesn't. Yeah. If it's something that you've shared your personal word, let's do the Nick Mosh story.
Okay.
To end it all.
So basically, I think so. Nick was like at oh shit! I wish I could remember what show it was. I wanted to say it was Cannibal Corpse, but I might be wrong about that. But anyways, he was stage diving. This is at Studio 7 in Seattle. And he was stage diving, and they're like really not down with that whatsoever. And so at one point, the security guard like got a hold of him and dragged him into the back hallway. Like there's a door to the side of the stage, and drug him to the back hallway, threw him down. Nick had just broken his leg, right? This man stomps on his broken leg and breaks it again. Yeah. The security guard. Yeah. And they're like tussling and stuff. And Nick is like, let me the fuck go. You just broke my fucking leg. And the security guard was like, yeah. And the security guard was like, fuck you. Like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, I can't fucking move. Like, you literally broke my fucking leg. And somehow I think the security guard like threw him out with his broken ass leg. So yeah, so that's pretty much the whole story.
There's just something about venue people, and they just get on a power trip, and it's just like what they say goes, and you're like, can we just take a second and just talk this out like adults? And it's like, no, and I'm like, holy fuck, calm the fuck down. Like,
this is a hardcore show. People are gonna want to jump off the stage. Like, that's not that crazy. It's like they're okay if they get hurt by doing that.
Right.
You know, they understand what they're doing. And at hardcore shows, it's like everything is free reign, you know? In my opinion, it should be like jump off the fucking balcony if you want to. Mm-hmm. That's none of my business. That's you know?
Right. Yeah. If you could jump off the balcony and what happens, and it's not like anyone's fault but the person actually doing it. But Brenna, this has been a great chat. I wish we had more time, but I want to be sensitive of you having to bounce. All your links and the band links will be in the description and the show notes. But if there's anything you want to plug, shout out, or send the people off with before we wrap up, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, shout out Earth Exit. Shout out Rapid Response. Shout out to all the fucking Canada bands that we played with.
Yes.
And honestly, like, I had such a great time, and I met so many great people, and I was turned on to so many fucking awesome bands. So I'm really happy about that. And shout out to my boys, Logan, Spencer, and Nikki. I love them so fucking much. And shout out to Tiana and Sav, the girls who basically introduced me into everything I know about music. So yeah,
that's full circle shout outs, if I'll call it that. Brenna, I really appreciate you not only coming up to Western Canada, but also coming on the podcast. I hope that you guys are going to make a trip out again soon, and I'm sure that we'll cross paths sooner than we think. So again, thanks for coming on and jamming with me.
Of course, thanks for having me.